Worship leaders and sound techs. If you saw last week's episode, you know that Reverb can help give you a sense of space and make your live stream sound fuller and more natural. But what if we use two? Let's talk about it. Welcome to Blueprint Sounds. My name is Nathan Smith. Thanks for joining me. Today we're going to talk about Reverb Part 2 and how having two reverbs is better than one. But before we get to effects, make sure you go to blueprintsounds.com and get access to my free workshop. It's called 5 Elements of a Full Sounding Worship Team. And it's specifically for the band to help them know how to put their pieces together to have the fullest sound they can. It doesn't matter how many reverbs and effects you have. If your band isn't arranged well, it's hard to mix. When the band is arranged well, it's easy to mix. So make sure that you get access to that. If you have already done so, make sure your team knows about it so that you all are using the same language for what you're doing on stage. All right, let's get to our tip for the week. 2 reverbs are better than 1. So here we are, tip 2 for don't fear effects in church. Today's tip is 2 are better than 1. And here's what we've got, just to refresh your memory. We have our vocal coming out of bus 21 going into the room verb. And here's what it sounded like going through. Right on my heart and rise in my heart. Not bad. If that was the only thing the only option I had, if I only had one reverb that I could use, that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But if we have 2 reverbs at our disposal, we can get a lot better results. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to call up what's called a hall verb. And hall just means that it's a much larger space than a room. And what the hall gives me, visualize this, is a tall ceiling, right? It gives you a sense of something above your head. Whereas the room, I'm moving my arm back and forth as I say this, away from my chest and towards it. So as the room gives you this distance away from you type feel, the hall gives you an above your head type feel. So you can get more 3-dimensional effects when you use 2 rather than 1. What that means is with my room reverb, I can back off and not use so much of it. So the first thing I'll do is I'm going to take my decay from, instead of 1.5 seconds, I'm going to take it under a second, maybe like a half a second instead. Maybe I'll bring my distance down, and I'm actually going to take down how much I'm sending. So I had a lot sent. I'm going to send less, and let's listen to that. Right on my heart. So just so you can hear it, I'm going to solo just the reverb and the vocal, just those 2, and I'm going to stop the tracks because sometimes you can hear the bloom of the reverb when the track stops, and that'll give you a sense of what we're doing. Right on my heart. Okay. So now it's very quiet. It's very unobtrusive, but I'm going to bring in the hall. So let's close this out for a second and show you what I'm doing with my hall reverb. Okay, so last week we talked about how you can EQ a unit to make sure that you take off the top and the bottom. Now I did that last week with the room verb with a channel EQ that I just put after my reverb unit. But on a lot of reverb units, the EQ comes built into the unit itself. So you might see it as a high cut or low cut or a high pass and a low pass. But it's the same idea, is that you're loping off the bottom, you're loping off the top. Now on this unit, I've got a decay of 1 second. And here's the important part, pre-delay. So what in the world is pre-delay and why does it matter? Here's what pre-delay is. Pre-delay is the distance from the beginning of the note, like when I sing right on my heart, think of that T. When the vocalist hits that T, if the pre-delay was set at 0, the unit, the reverb, would engage immediately on that T. Well, that's okay for the room verb because I'm going to make it a short attack. I'm going to make it a short sound that's not very long. But what happens is if all of your reverbs are hitting right on the attack of the T, it muddies the distinction of the vocal. It becomes hard to tell what the consonants were because the reverb is all about sending out extra space and reflections and stuff bouncing off. So what I do with my pre-delay by taking it up, so I've got it at 77 milliseconds, You just got to get it above, 50, 60 milliseconds. What that does is it moves, it says wait reverb unit, wait a little bit, a couple milliseconds, or in this case, 77 milliseconds, till after you hear that T, and then you can do your thing. That means that my room verb, which is short, is happening right at the beginning of the T, or the transient is a fancy word for the attack of a note. And then my next reverb unit is waiting a little bit longer, 77 milliseconds, and then starting. So I get the distinction of the note that I'm singing, plus I get this lovely tail with the hall reverb. So now let's listen to what the hall reverb sounds like. I'm going to take off the room verb for a second so that you can hear just what the hall is doing. Right on my heart. Ooh. And rise in my heart. Nice. What this allows me to do is to use both of them together. I'm going to bring down my room verb, and I get a little bit here, and I get a little bit more on the hall. Let's put those together and see what that sounds like. Right on my heart and rise in my heart. Come and make it your home. Deep calls out to deep. Oh, that's so much better. I get the front to back sense with the room reverb, and I get the feeling of a tall ceiling or something going on over my head with the hall verb. And my short room reverb has no pre-delay. My hall verb, I've pushed out the beginning of the reverb with my pre-delay by taking it up 77 milliseconds. So now I've got them working in tandem. That means I can use less of one, but the combination of the two gives me an excellent result. So that's the second tip, is don't just use one reverb, use two reverbs, but if you know how to use them, give yourself a short one with no pre-delay, give yourself a longer one with a pre-delay, but for both of them, you're going to lope off the bottom and the top with EQ, which usually can be done in the unit, and you'll wind up with a big but natural sound. Hey, I hope that helps you as you mix your live streams to get the best sound you can. There's still 2 more weeks, so stay tuned. And once again, go to blueprintsounds.com to get access to that 45-minute training, 5 elements of a full-sounding worship team. Again, all the effects in the world don't matter if the band doesn't know how to arrange themselves to give a full sound. Until then, God bless and goodbye.